It was a normal morning at the local high school. Abby was standing by her locker to get ready for her first class in English when her friend Daniel walked up to her. Daniel and Abby have been best friends since first grade. They normally do anything together, and they always been there for each other also. Like if they need help with homeworks, school projects, or if Abby needs to talk to someone. Because she always trusts with Daniel. And even recently, about a week earlier, when Abby found out about her boyfriend had been cheating on her, she was devastated. They had been dating for about a year when she found out that he had been seeing another girl behind her back for about a month. She was devastated. She had really strong hopes that one day that they would get married after college and start a family. But those dreams had came down with a big crash. She was so devastated. Even the same day when she called Daniel to come over, since they live next door to each other, and he was unaware when he came over when he told her. He was really surprised because could see how happy she were with her boyfriend, but knowing that what he did to her, he could not even believe it. He was very hurtful himself, but he managed to comfort her and cheer her up. And this day at school, something would change her life as not what she expected to be. Because the same day when Daniel walked up to her, there was small talk went before the school bell rang and they walked to the next class. Even though the first class went about perfectly, but there was something that Abby wasn't aware about though. That Daniel had a secret crush on her since about a year earlier. But he hasn't even told anyone, not even Abby. Even though that Abby and Daniel always share each other's secrets, but this was a secret that Daniel couldn't even reveal to her. The reason why he hasn't even told her is that he then doesn't want to jeopardize the friendship, and especially when Abby told him that she had been seeing this guy from school. That was also another reason he didn't want to tell Abby about his feelings for her. Because not only that he wanted to jeopardize their friendship, but he doesn't even want to ruin her newly with her new first boyfriend either. So that he always decided for himself to keep this a secret, not to tell anyone, not even some close friends. Despite knowing how much he feels for her, and even though that only seeing her with her boyfriend over the past year, seeing how she was so happy with him, even it hurts him in his heart to seeing her so happy. But as long as she is happy, he is happy for her. But this was going to change for a drastic end for everyone else. Because through that day, perfect as they always. The class at the school went as normal. They had lunch break together as normally. But that they normally even after school was over, they usually walk together back home since they lived close next to each other. But this day, Abby decided to stay behind to talk to some of her friends, and Daniel, he decided to walk home himself. But then, Daniel was struck down by a car, and even that the car screeched its tires, and Abby heard some of the screams, and she slowly turned around and saw her friend was laying on the ground next to a car where from completely stopped, and she was terrified. Not only that, all the other students were screaming or were petrified of fear. And Abby, even if the phone was like for an eternity, she snapped out of it. She screamed for anyone to call for an ambulance, and one of the students did that. Abby ran as fast as she could, run up to Daniel, tried to see if he was okay, tried to see if he was awake or something, but he was unconscious. She was afraid that he was dead, so she looked at his pulse, and he had a pulse. But she was afraid to move him because she didn't know how severe his injuries could be. She tried to stay by his side, and shortly an ambulance arrived. They took Daniel with to the hospital, and Abby joined them because she was his best friend. And even during the hustling on the ambulance on the way, she could not step away from Daniel. She was crying, hoping that he would be okay, because she couldn't even lose him. She was his best friend. Even though on the way in the hospital, in the waiting room, Abby was crying. Even when she had called her mom what happened, her mom came to the hospital and found her daughter was so crying. She was devastated about this. And shortly later, Daniel's parents arrived and they had been informed by the school. And it turned out this guy in the car was chasing by the police. He was actually being stolen a car, and when he hit Daniel on the street, that was the only thing that made him stop, and the police managed to catch him. But that was not the only thing. It's like when Daniel arrived at the hospital, he was immediately taken to surgery. He felt an eternity before the doctor came out, and it was only about maybe 4 hours later, but it felt like an eternity to Abby. And the doctor told Daniel's parents was that he was stable and not in a critical condition. They were also informed that he had a severe concussion, 6 broken ribs, 1 broken arm, and he had to stay in the hospital for at least 2 weeks to make full recovery. And they asked if they could go see him, and they was allowed to. But Abby, she could not even walk in a room when she saw Daniel on the hospital bed. She couldn't even bring herself to go inside because when she saw them with this machine and he was unconscious on the hospital bed, she started crying even more and asked her mom to take her home because she couldn't even stand to see him there, and she agreed. Only a couple of days later, Abby was told by her mom that Daniel had woken up, and she pleaded to her mom if she could take him there to so that she can see him, and she agreed. Even on the way to the hospital, Abby was terrified about what happened, but she was even relieved that Daniel has woken up from the accident. And according to what Daniel's mom told Abby's mom, that Daniel was very clear in his mind, but still tired, but at least it's a good sign he's recovering well. And when they arrived, Daniel was happy to see Abby. He smiled and said, "Hello there, Goofy." "Hi, Goofy." They usually call each other Goofy because Daniel always tells bad jokes to Abby to cheer her up. Even though that he knows they're bad jokes, but she always laughs because he always makes her laugh. Abby sits down next to Daniel, who is smiling and sees that he's feeling some pain, but he says, "Are you in pain?" "Not so much. I have been worse," he said. "Oh, when?" Well, maybe the time when I fell off from uh, the window from the second floor." "Yeah, but you were only 10, and you didn't have so much broken. It was in the winter also." "Yeah, true, but don't don't try to push yourself." "But I'm just glad that you're okay. I was terrified. I thought I would be losing you too." For a couple of years earlier, when Abby lost her dad in a car accident, and it was almost the same thing happened to him. He was hit by a car and didn't make it. Abby was terrified she would lose her best friend in the same way as she lost her dad. Daniel, after that accident, was more closer to her, but there was something about Daniel that she knew when she looked at him. He was not smiling as much as he usually did. "Is something wrong, Daniel?" she asked. "No, there's nothing wrong. I'm just happy to see you, that's all." But there was something about that Daniel didn't tell all the things that he wanted to tell. "You can tell me anything, Daniel. You know that." "Well, there is one thing. You know, I don't know what to say, but you can tell me. But Daniel then was silent for a moment. Even felt like an eternity, but he was silent. But he then mentioned the reason I. There is something I didn't want to tell you, but the thing is, I want to tell you is that I'm in love with you, Abby. I have been for about a year, and Abby was stunned. She had no idea what to say except, really? But why haven't you even told me? At first, Daniel didn't know what to say except, the reason why I didn't tell you that it was because I didn't want to jeopardize our friendship. And especially when you were having your ex-boyfriend, when you were to just start dating him, that was another reason I didn't tell you. I I didn't want to jeopardize your relationship with him, and I didn't want to be cause of your breakup even so early. You just start dating him. But Abby didn't want to say much though. She didn't say much. She just listened. And now after that happened, and after this, even I was in hospital, and even when I came here, when I woke up, I realized that was so close. I had me the last chance to tell you. And it was like I was given a second chance to be able to tell you how I feel for you. But now you know, and I understand if you only like me as a friend, a brother type. But Abby, she was silent. But I do love you. And Daniel looked at her with a curious look. What? I love you too, Daniel. I always have. But why didn't you tell me then? I was scared. I didn't know what to say. And especially, I was going to tell you when this other guy told me he had a crush on me and he asked me out. I had two options: go out with him or tell you. But I didn't even know if you liked me the same way. So I chose him. I'm sorry. And Abby was crying. And then something did happen. Daniel took his hand and cleared out some of her, wiped out some of her tears and said, "Don't cry, Abby. You know, maybe that wasn't meant for this to happen." What do you mean? Maybe all this was meant to happen in the first place, so I would be able to tell you how I felt for you. Well, maybe less a car accident, though. Maybe this was the fate to happen. So maybe there was the fate that somehow gave me a push, so to be able to tell you. Even though after happened is your breakup, I wanted to tell you then, but I couldn't. And Abby realized Daniel was telling the truth. They small talk for a bit longer, and then Daniel asked if Abby wanted to go out with him. Well, at least after his had made some full recovery. And Abby said yes, even though that Daniel had to stay for another week in hospital. Even though when he came home, the doctor had told his parents that he should stay at home at least a little bit, maybe for another week, to make sure that he had made a full recovery. After the such accident, it could make some painful for him. And after about a week, he was allowed to go back to school except avoid gym class, which he was allowed to from the teachers. When he came back though, everyone was very happy to see he was back. Some of his best friends, some of his best guy friends, with even some of the other students that actually looked up to Daniel. They all looked up to him. They was curious to know how he felt, like everything. Then someone even asked Abby. After all, they all knew that Abby and Daniel has been the oldest friends. They know each other since they were kids. So they asked her how she felt about all this. But she was happy to know that Daniel was happy that he was okay again. But the same Friday, Abby and Daniel went to the movies. But their friends didn't even pay much attention because it happened before the accident. That Daniel and Abby went to the movies, the bowling alley, or maybe went to the park as friends. So they didn't even pay much attention because they thought this was just two friends was hanging out as they normally did. But this time it was different. They were actually hugging, kissing, holding hands in the movie theater. And they had even told either their parents about their been dating. They were want to keep this a secret, at least a while. But it didn't keep this a secret for long though, because one day on a Saturday, when the Abby and Daniel went to the movies for a date, one of their friends, a girl, was sitting in the back row, and she saw Abby and Daniel. She didn't thought much about it when they saw they both were kissing. And that made her realize Abby and Daniel had been dating. But it didn't take long for the whole school to know about it. But they was actually very happy. All of their friends was happy to know that Abby and Daniel was been dating. After all, it was only a matter of time before any of them would admit their feelings for each other. There were some of their friends that had some kind of a little bit a sixth sense or a feeling that Abby or either Daniel had feelings for his friend. But they were actually very happy to have these feelings being told. And when their families was told, though, Abby's mom was just happy to know that Daniel was the one to be with Abby. After all, Abby had told her mom what her ex-boyfriend had did, and let's say that Abby's mom wasn't happy when she found out, though. But when she found out that Abby was now dating Daniel, she was actually very approval for that. After all, Abby's mom and Daniel had known each other for years. They had known each other since when he was the same age as when he was in the first grade with Abby. Abby, though, she was really happy because she was close to Daniel's mom and dad as well. And even both families were one day maybe hope that maybe they could end up getting married. But both Daniel and Abby have said that might happen, but they want to focus on school and finish college first, though, before even consider being dating or take that next step, which both agreed. The rest of the school year on the college went perfectly. They had no more fights, they went to prom together, they went to the formal dance, they went to some school events like soccer, even on the school trips. Everything was perfect between them. And when they went to college, though, they actually decided to go to the same college. Even at the beginning, some of the girls who went there had asked Daniel out on a date, but he declined on and even explained that he had already had a long-term girlfriend who went to the same college as him. And it actually did happen that some of the guys actually did also like Abby and had asked her out as well. But she always declined. But other than that, they worked perfectly. Even after they finished on their last year of college, Daniel proposed to Abby, and she said yes. Even though that he had proposed to her, they wanted to wait with the wedding at least after they finished college and maybe found some work so that so they could support each other, which happened. After that college was over for them, Abby started working as a waitress at a local cafe in town, and Daniel, he actually worked for a sports store, and both of them actually liked their jobs. But after about a year after they had finished college, they had saved up enough money to buy a small house as close to their own parents lived. and it went perfectly. Because only about 6 months after they had bought the house, the parents allowed was helping them to arrange a small wedding. After all, they wanted to have a big wedding, but since the money budget was tight, so they decided to have a small wedding in their own backyard and invited some close friends and their families. And even though it was a small wedding, but both of them actually had a great time. They even went to a small cabin in a different nearby town, which they stayed for about a few days as a honeymoon, which they was only they had afforded it. But it was actually have a great time. And just after being married for 2 years, Abby told Daniel he was going to be a dad. And both were so excited to be a parent. And even the parents and friends were so excited. But then a tragedy struck them both odd. After that, Abby was in 2 months along pregnant. One morning, she felt a strong pain in her stomach, and she was all alone. Daniel was at work. It turned out she lost her baby. But only a few weeks earlier, Abby and Daniel have went into the doctor for just a regular checkup of the baby, ultrasound and everything. And it sounded, according to the regular checkup, everything was perfect. Nothing was wrong. And Abby, she took it very hard, losing her baby at such early stage. She almost insulated herself from the whole world, even for family and including Daniel. Daniel, he has took it very seriously hard himself. He was looking forward to be a parent. They had even prepared a nursery of this child's home, his own room for the baby to be in it. Everything they had been spending up time to, at all time to, they're spending money for some baby supplies, toys, and crib, everything. And now, losing a baby, and in Daniel's mind, he thought maybe he will lose Abby as well because she didn't even really eat anything, and barely speak to him. But he managed to talk to her that things like this happens. But he was not willing to give up all the things that happened between them. And that was the thing that she needed to hear. Because Abby realized she couldn't even stand to leaving Daniel, even to lose up a baby. But another year passed when Abby was found out once again she was pregnant. Even Bolton was happy to be a parent. They had still kept all the baby's things in a storage. But this time, even though Abby was happy to be a mother again, but deep down, she was terrified, in a fear of losing her baby again. 2 months passed, 6 months passed, and 9 months passed, and they had a baby girl. She was really happy to have a baby girl, but still, she was afraid that the baby maybe had might not, could be something wrong with her. Or at least she was afraid of that. But the doctor confirmed that she was perfectly healthy. And they had named the daughter Sarah. Sarah was a very perfect, healthy baby girl. And when she was 2 years old, Abby and Daniel had another baby, and this time a son, a boy, which they named John, after Abby's pet dad. And Daniel, he said, your dad would have been happy and proud that you named your son after him. Even after all that happened, Abby and Daniel had remained strong and happy. Because Daniel realized if he had even told Abby about his feelings for her, he would have missed out all his happiness, his love for Abby. And Abby, though, she would have missed out all the same things if she had even been told about his feelings for her. And this is how Abby and Daniel found a true love, got a family together. The end.